Hello, everybody, and welcome to our reading of Ecclesiastes. If you were with us last time, we read up through chapter 4. Um, it's December, I've been busy, but we're getting back into it now. So I find Ecclesiastes is just it's a really fascinating study because it's very, very different from most other books. Because it's really full of the pointlessness of life if you don't have God in it, which is something that is said in other places, but Ecclesiastes is one of the places that really focuses on it. So we're going to go ahead and jump on into this. As always, we're kind of trying to dive just a little bit beyond the surface reading, hopefully get a little bit of revealed knowledge instead of just pragmatic understanding. And as I go through it, if you have comments or thoughts, or if you're watching the recording afterwards, please go ahead and leave them down below. Let me know. I love to hear what you guys are thinking, how you have a discussion, as it were. And I'm getting dry mouth already. That's typical of me. So, chapter 5. Guard your steps when you go into the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know that they do wrong. And I guess that's also something that's true. This to me kind of speaks in the closer to the regard of people that today they call it the genie god. You go when you need something, but it's not all a one-way street. And God isn't even as focused on earthly blessings. He'll give you those at his discretion, but that's not really what your relationship should be about. If you're pursuing God so that he'll bless you here on earth, you're after the wrong thing. That you're going to the wrong guy. He's more focused about the condition of your soul and what you're going to be building for yourself up in heaven as an offering to him. That's not the same thing as trying to build up blessings for yourself down on earth. He'll give you those, but it's only for the purpose of you being able to fulfill the work. So don't go to him assuming you know best. The other idea of this is whenever you think you have plans for your life. And I'm not saying necessarily that you can't have plans, but you have to be aware that your plans may be different from God's plans. Even if you prayed on those plans, even if you think you know, always be prepared for the possibility and likelihood that you are going to be wildly off base, because more often than not you are. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean don't talk to God. This doesn't mean to conceal anything from God, even if you could. But don't be so quick to think you know what God needs to give you, I guess, is how I would phrase this. Don't be in the state of mind of where you're just going to hastily say something without actually thinking about it. Other people like to do that too. They make a promise and then don't actually think for 2 seconds about what it is they're saying. God knows your heart, right? He knows your heart. He knows your soul. But don't say anything for the purpose of saying it. Don't say anything for the purpose of tradition or because it feels like something you should say. If you say something that you don't mean, if you speak in haste, I guess if we want to put it that way, you're really, really setting yourself up for a lot of struggle and disappointment. And inevitably, you're going to just frustrate yourself and possibly anger God because you're making a flippant vow. A dream comes when there are many cares, and many words mark the speech of a fool. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. He has no pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Now mind, because this is something I see people kind of trip over, so I want to make a clarification here. This is not the same thing as stumbling in your walk, right? We are going to fail in our walks. We are human, we are fleshly, we are going to fail. Grace covers the failure. That's not the same thing as the condition of your heart. The condition of your heart is your honest intention. If you're setting out thinking, yeah, I'm going to sin, it's fine, that's whenever you're actually making a false vow, if you want to look at it in that way. But if you're going out thinking, I'm not going to do this thing, and then you find, I did it again. Again, lust is one of the easiest examples. But if you go out saying, I'm not going to give in to lust, and then you find that you fall in that, That's not saying you're a failure. That's you stumbling. That's you falling. That's the flesh winning a battle, but it's not the war of the thing. And that's not the same thing as your vow not to do that. So don't be flippant about it. But in the same breath, if you feel something tugging at your heart and you tell God that you're going to do it, whether it be, performing an act, giving to charity, or whatever it may be, don't hold back on that. That's something. If you really feel it's something that God is tugging on your heart, you need to leap at that chance. And I know it's hard to do. I've been in that situation myself. It's not an easy thing to train yourself to do, but you do. You have to kind of train yourself in the same way you almost train an animal to have a quick reaction to it. So do not let your mouth lead you into sin. And do not protest to the temple messenger. My vow was a mistake. Why should God be angry at you? Why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear God. And this kind of goes into what we were talking about a little bit earlier with the process of the plans of man. Your plans, even if they're good intentioned, may not line up to God. If you go to God and you're quick to speak, it means you're not actually listening. It's the same way in any human relationship. You need to go to God and be prepared to just spend time in his presence and listening. It's something that is very hard to do early on in your journey, but the more you practice it, the more you spend time in meditation, in prayer, the more you learn how to listen. It's like anything else. It's a practice. It's like any skill set. And the more you learn to listen, the more you will learn to follow. Because early on in your journey, you almost feel like you're trying to blindly walk through a field of mines that are laid out before you, right? But the more you practice, the more you learn how to move. And the more you stop and listen, you're going to realize you're not trying to take a step and then respond to, is that right or is that wrong? You're going to hear, go here, now go here, now go here, now go here. And the more you learn to listen to that, it actually becomes an easier walk because you're actually following the path God made instead of trying to lead. It's like whenever a dog is tugging at the leash, once you learn not to tug at the leash and instead walk alongside your master, you will not only come to find that you have an easier walk, you will actually long for a tighter hold on the leash because you're like, hey, I don't want to be off on the path here and stumble into my own screw up. I want you to keep me right there by your side. If you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things. For one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are others higher still. The increase from the land is taken by all. The king himself profits from the fields. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. I feel like that's a passage that's so encompassing whenever we look at the wealthy in our world today. We look at one of the good examples I guess I would point to is one of the easiest topical examples for a lot of people in first world countries is these mega influencers who make millions upon millions of dollars and then they'll pull a crypto scam and rug their fans for like 100,000. And it's like, that's chump change to you. Why on earth would you do this in ruin what little credibility you may have ever even had? I'm not going to name names, but you guys, somebody popped in the head of pretty much anybody that heard that and knows what I'm talking about. So, it's like, well, why would you do that? Well, it's never enough. There is no such thing as it being enough because at a certain point, it no longer becomes about what the money provides, right? When a lot of people look at money, they think this is what it can provide me. This is what it can secure for me. This is the worries it can alleviate. But at a certain point, that no longer becomes the concern. Once there's a quote, ironically, by Bill Gates of all people. But I kind of like the quote, which is, I can understand the allure of wanting $1 million, but I have to tell you past that, it's all the same hamburger. And like I say, it's just ironic that that's Bill Gates now. But I think the point is a valid one that really past the need to purchase things in life, past the need to secure your own existence, to provide a house, to have food and all that kind of stuff. There is no longer something that money is actually providing you. It becomes a desire. It becomes like drugs. It becomes a vice. And it's something that will very, 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 very easily latch itself around your heart. And it happens even for people that don't have a lot of wealth. It's something that can hit you way before you have any wealth, even. It can hit people in poverty. But for those people, especially that do have wealth, I would say it's even a greater risk for them because they've learned how to make money. And they see that as being all they are capable of doing. So that's what they pursue to an nth degree, if you will. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owners, except to feast their eyes on them? The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, their abundance permits no sleep. I have seen a grievous evil under the sun. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. This is also a message that's delivered in other places throughout the scriptures, but yeah, it kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier when it comes to what you pray for God. Yes, you need some sort of provision to subsist while you're on earth. None of us are going to get away from that. But it's a mistake to let that become what consumes you. It's a mistake to let that desire for what I guess I would quantify as success, if you want to call it that, even though that's a bad word for it, but it's a mistake to let success become what you value. Because if that's what you value, you're ultimately going to spend your whole life toiling away for something that you're not going to be able to keep. Whether you go to heaven or to hell, nothing you make for yourself on earth is going with you. So it's a foolish thing to spend what is ultimately a small blink in the grand scope of time focusing on these little things, especially to the detriment of your health and your family and your focus and your heart. I understand why we fall into it. It's a very easy trap to fall into, and Satan loves that about it. But you can't let it become your focus. You can't let it become the thing that consumes you. This too is a grievous evil. As everyone comes, so they depart. And what do they gain, since they toil for the wind? All their days they eat in darkness, with great frustration, affliction, and anger. This is what I have observed to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given them, for this is their lot. So all of this stuff Solomon is lamenting. He's saying, this means nothing, this means nothing, this means nothing, this means nothing, this means nothing. And then he stops. This is what's good. That for the time that you're here, you work and you eat and you drink to satisfaction. Just to satisfaction, not to excess. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions, and the ability to enjoy them, and to accept their lot, and be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. That's also something I think is so important to understand. We have this delusion we label under in the modern church that anything we manage to find peace or joy or happiness in is by our own will, or that we can resist sin by our own willpower. You can't. Okay? Without the Spirit in you, without God in you, without the soul, you are a mindless, ravaging animal. If you want to put it in psychological terms, without the Spirit, you're just the id. Okay? You're this angry, violent little thing that will seek only what most immediately it desires. So you can't labor under this delusion that your own will or your own desires as a purely fleshly being are going to provide any sort of contentment or happiness, because there is none in you. What you have is by the grace of God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life, because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. I have seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind. God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor, so that they lack nothing their hearts desire. But God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them, and strangers enjoy them instead. This is meaningless, a grievous evil. And I guess I want to break down what he's saying a little bit here, because it can easily lead you down a misunderstanding of who God is. It's not that God is granting these people these riches and then hardening their hearts as a form of punishment. This is also something that I think is unintentionally misleading in Exodus, for example, because it's worded as God hardens the heart, which is not wrong, but our modern language takes that phrase in a different meaning than intended. It's not that God is seeing a heart that is soft and able to be, to love him and to take these things in the correct way, and then he reaches in and manipulates it so that it's hardened. That would be God destroying free will, which is not who God is. It means that whenever somebody with a heart like that is exposed to God, they themselves solidify their position and harden their hearts. It's not saying that God is reaching in and destroying their free will. They harden their hearts. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about something like this. But God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them. Well, it means whenever they are given these gifts by God, their own, whatever it is, selfishness or desire or whatever it might be that corrupts that is something that they start to revel in. My own father has his own aspect of this, which is he's happily declared he's never going to retire because he finds his value as a human being in his ability to work and earn money. I've talked at length with him about this, and we haven't yet reached a position where we see eye to eye. But the point being that he doesn't have an enjoyment in his heart. My parents are not in a position where they're going to lose their house anytime. Like, that's not a danger they're in, but there isn't any semblance of, okay, it's enough. I've watched them my entire life, and they've never hit that point. And I don't say that to rag on them. I just say that as an example of a lived experience. But my point is that there is nothing that they could gain that would say, okay, now we are content and we are happy, because it's coming from the wrong place. Now, like I say, don't get me wrong, I love my parents to death. I've talked to them about this at length, but that's an issue they have, and that's something I can't give them a softened heart towards. It may happen in their time. Obviously, it may not. I don't know. I can't speak on that, but that's the kind of thing we're talking about when Solomon calls this grievous evil. A man may have 100 children and live many years, yet no matter how long he lives, if he cannot enjoy his prosperity and does not receive a proper burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. It comes without meaning. It departs in darkness, and in darkness its name is shrouded. Though it never saw the sun or knew anything, it has more rest than does that man, even if he lives 1,000 years twice over, but still fails to enjoy his prosperity. Do not all go to the same place. And that's the thing here is even if we did live to be 2,000 years old, ultimately our lives would still be a blink in the existence of all of time. And if you don't find enjoyment, the only true enjoyment, which is to live for God, you're just torturing yourself. A lot of people don't think that's what it is. They think that's just the way life is, and therefore that's what I have to work with. But that's because they're so blinded to what they lack that they think it's a form of enjoyment. If you spent your entire life in darkness and you see a small flicker of a candle off in the distance, you're going to think it's the sun. Well, that's the position these people are in because all they know is that toil and that labor, and there's no satisfaction at any point. There is no enjoyment ever because all they have is that thing. Everyone's toil is for their mouth, yet their appetite is never satisfied. What advantage have the wise over the fools? What do the poor gain by knowing how to conduct themselves before others? Better what the eye sees than the roving of the appetite. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Whatever exists has already been named, and what humanity is has been known. No one can contend with someone who is stronger. The more the words, the less the meaning. And how does that profit anyone? For who knows what is good for a person in life? During the few and meaningless days they pass through like a shadow. Who can tell them what will happen under the sun after they are gone? And obviously the only answer to anyone who could tell you what the ultimate position is going to be is God. And he often won't tell you, he'll just have you perform your part in it. And you have to try to find satisfaction in knowing that. And I would say that not only provides a satisfaction, but there is a security. If you understand that what you're doing is what God needs you to do. Because if you look down and you say, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what my piece is in all this. I just know this is what I was told to do, and I did it as best I was capable. There is a satisfaction that comes with that because you were obedient. Now, if you learn to meditate and draw near to God, truly draw near to God, try to live with the Spirit of God and pursue the mind of Christ, you can start to see it in a way. You'll never see it in its entirety. We don't have that mind. Even if we could see everything in its entirety, we couldn't comprehend it. But you can see a little bit more of the way things shape and the way things move in your life and in the lives of others. It's a side effect of drawing nearer to God. You see a little more like God. That's the same thing as prophecy. Whenever you see into the future, you are actually seeing life for a brief moment, similar to how God sees it outside of the time. But yeah, there's just that aspect. The only thing that can truly bring a person peace is knowing they've done the job God assigns them. Nothing else brings that kind of peace. A good name is better than fine perfume. This is an echo of one of the lines of Proverbs, which is, it's better to have a great name than riches. A good name is better than fine perfume. And the day of death better than the day of birth. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart. That's a hard statement right there. It's often said that Jesus would sometimes give hard teachings. I think this is one of the harder teachings of Solomon, because we, even as Christians, have a very hard time dealing with death. And it's because from what we're able to perceive, death seems like the end, even of other Christians. But the reality is that death is the day where all pain and everything is released. It's hard to think of it in that way, especially for deeply loved ones. Even if sometimes we still say that to each other, we'll say, oh, well, they're in a better place. If it's a person who was struggling at the end of their life, we'll say, well, they're not in pain anymore. And that's all absolutely true. I'm not discounting any of that. But it's difficult to really, truly accept that in your heart whenever we're dealing with mourning. But if you can, even on a basic level, there is a lot more peace that comes to that, as there should be. It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than to listen to the songs of fools. Like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of fools. This too is meaningless. Extortion turns a wise person into a fool, and a bribe corrupts the heart. I like that he's just hitting upon money, because you have to realize Solomon was actually a exceedingly wealthy person. Solomon had everything an earthly heart could desire, to excess. And that's kind of why he wrote Ecclesiastes. He's saying, look, I have seen all of it, and none of it mattered. The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the laps of fools. Do not say, "Why are the old days better than these?" For it is not wise to ask such questions. And that's another interesting one, because we live in a state of mind where we want answers to everything, right? We think we want to understand. Though the reality is, if we understood everything we want to know, we would break our brains. The human mind can't comprehend that. It's just not meant to deal with it. Kind of the easiest go-to example is the idea of eternity. We understand that God exists before time and after time, but the human mind can't comprehend of a before and after time. Time has always been, we think, and so there is no such thing as before time, even though there is. We just can't comprehend that idea. But yeah, we fall into this trap of thinking, I want to understand. Why were the old days better than the days we're in? But if you start to go down that rabbit hole, not only are you going to be neglecting your present in favor of the past, which is another thing the Bible warns against, but you're just going to find yourself lost in an endless rabbit hole, ultimately of sorrow and regret. There is no joy to be found in reflecting on why things were better. It's one thing to reflect and grow. It's another thing to remember and take pleasure in what it was. But to just reflect and lament, you're never gonna bring yourself any happiness. It's not gonna bring you any closer to God. It is just gonna make you miserable. Wisdom, like an inheritance, is a good thing, and benefit those who see the sun. Wisdom is a shelter, as money is a shelter. But the advantage of knowledge is this: wisdom preserves those who have it. Consider what God has done. Who can straighten what he has made crooked? When times are good, be happy. But when times are bad, consider this: God has made one as well as the other. Therefore, no one can discover anything about their future. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier when we were talking about the plans man can make for your own life. You can't possibly see what's going to happen to you. You can try. You can make plans. You can try to make contingencies. You can try to build up security, but you have no idea what is going to happen in life. You could hoard up, $20 million for yourself, but what happens if the entire economy collapses and money becomes meaningless? You could build up a whole storm shelter with, preserved food and water, but if there's, a nuclear war and you're not able to go to that shelter, that doesn't matter for you. I'm not saying that in a sense of like despair. I'm saying that in a sense of like, don't fret about that. I'm not saying, go and blow every last cent you have today because tomorrow doesn't matter, but don't panic and try to provide something that you never understand may be coming. If you feel inclined to do something to, help hold out should something happen, then okay, do that, but don't go crazy with it. You're never going to be able to plan for everything. In this meaningless life of mine, I have seen both of these: the righteous perishing in their righteousness, and the wicked living long in their wickedness. Do not be over righteous, neither be over wise. Why destroy yourself? That one's an interesting statement. That's kind of one that I think requires a bit of reflection. That's kind of an interesting statement. Do not be over righteous nor over wise. I spoke a little bit earlier about the degree to which you can destroy yourself if you try to comprehend things you're not ready for. And I guess that's the degree to which I would say he's speaking in this regard. The over-righteous is kind of a different category, and the only thing that I can say would immediately come to mind in that regard is that if you, and I don't even know necessarily it's something I would easily say is righteousness, but if you do become a spiritual warrior, if you want to call it that, you have to realize that's not all just power for you. That means you're also going to become a bigger target for Satan. I've experienced that in my life. I know people in my family have experienced that. People in my church have experienced that. it's a true factor. The position is there to be stepped up into. God needs the warriors. If you want it, it's there for you. But you also have to realize that's not just you wielding more power. You're also going to have to shoulder a lot of that responsibility and bear a lot more of that fighting. So that's the only thing that comes to mind whenever we talk about this over righteousness. And I guess if I were to say it, I would almost phrase it as don't be eager to become. And again, I don't know if righteousness is necessarily the right word. So it could be, let's go ahead and define righteousness here. So I'm not just speaking completely blind here. Define righteousness. Ecclesiastes 7. So it's interesting here because I don't think you guys can actually see it. I think we're all, whoop, I didn't mean to move that one. There we go. Hopefully you guys can read a little bit now. Yeah, it's not a matter of just being good. It's doing what's right by God. Once again, it's being overly righteous. Okay, so in this regard, at least according to the AI, it means being legalistic, self-righteous, hypocritical. Okay, and that also makes a little more sense. That's not how I was reading it, but that does make sense whenever you consider it in that regard. So don't be an over-righteous prig. I emphasize the G on that because it sounds like a very different statement. But there is a sense of falling into this self-aggrandizing form of righteousness, which is not righteous at all, actually. So yeah, I would also say that is a form of destruction. That's not necessarily where my brain took it, but assuming that the AI has that right, that is also a good warning. And if it goes into that regard, I stand by what I said too. That's also some, but in the way that Solomon quite possibly means this, basically saying don't be somebody who gets lost in, the holier than thou attitude. Do not be over wicked, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time? It is good to grasp the one and not let go of the other. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes. Or some patches say will follow them both. And obviously it's not saying that you should be a foolish or wicked person. That just is nonsense. But essentially saying don't fall into the piousness or the complete arrogance, saying that there is, because if you follow one extreme, you can actually end up becoming a Pharisee, which is what they fell into. If you try to completely ignore all the tradition, you're going to end up just being a spiritually blind person. You want to make sure your focus is on God, that's where your step is following. This is also why I like Ecclesiastes, because it's one of those books that you really got to stop and think about quite a bit. Wisdom makes one wise person more powerful than 10 rulers in a city. Indeed, there is no one on earth who is righteous, no one who does what is right and never sins. Obviously, this was before the time of Christ. Pay no attention to every word people say, or you may hear your servant cursing you. For you know in your heart that many times you yourself have cursed others. That's also something that's, very true, because a lot of times, and I think you'll find this, not that it's always true, but a lot of times it's true. When you get frustrated with somebody and you say things you don't mean, if that person were to hear those words, it would stick in their head and just absolutely warp around them. I mean, it's an old thing, it's an old saying that you probably don't remember any time you've insulted somebody or given them a compliment, but they may remember it always. That's kind of what this is. You might say something about a person, or somebody might say something about you that is not even anything significant, but it'll stick in their brains and mean something it was never meant to mean. All this I tested by wisdom, and I said, I am determined to be wise, but this was beyond me. Whatever exists is far off and most profound. Who can discover it? So I turned my mind to understand, to investigate and to search out wisdom and the scheme of things, and to understand the stupidity of wickedness and the madness of folly. I find more bitter than death the woman who's a snare, whose heart is a trap, and whose hands are chains. The man who pleases God will escape her, but the sinner she will ensnare. One thing that's kind of interesting as we get into this verse that's worth taking note of, whenever a word in the Bible has a capital first letter, in the middle of a sentence, I should specify, it essentially means it's like the chief of all those things, right? That's why whenever Jesus is referred to, he's not just called rabbi with a lowercase r, he's called rabbi with a capital R, or prophet with a capital P. Like he is called the chiefest of these things. That's why Christ is always capitalized, because he is the Christ, or God is capitalized because he is not a God, he is the God. So that's what Solomon is talking about when he talks about the teacher. He's talking about like the high teacher, the high priest. Look, says the teacher, this is what I have discovered. Adding one thing to another to discover the scheme of things. While I was searching, but not finding, I found one upright man among 1,000, but not one upright woman among them all. And that is a verse that has caused a lot of people to debate and have a heated discussion about it. And there is a lot of, theories and discussion and everything. I think, and this is me thinking, this isn't a revealed knowledge thing. This is just my earthly pragmatic knowledge, making sense of it as best I'm capable of. I think when he talks about this, he's talking in the same bit as he's referring to in these previous verses, when he's talking about this, what did he call it? Oh, the woman who was a snare. So I think he's talking about it in that context. I don't think he's necessarily speaking about men in general or women in general. He's talking about amongst such people. I found one upright man among 1,000, but not one upright woman among them all. I don't think that's necessarily saying that to disparage women. I think the more important factor is that out of 2,000, there was one upright person. But that, like I said, that's just kind of as much sense as I've been able to make of it. It's a really strange way that he's phrased that. So that may be something that's worth, a study all on its own. Like I said, that's a heavily debated topic and not one I necessarily have an easy answer to. This only have I found. God created mankind upright, but they have gone in search of many schemes. And if that is not the understatement of the century, I don't know what is. Ecclesiastes 8. Who is like the wise? Who knows the explanation of things? A person's wisdom brightens their face and changes its hard appearance. Obey the king's command, I say, because you took an oath before God. Do not be in a hurry to leave the king's presence. Do not stand up for a bad cause, for he will do whatever he pleases. Since a king's word is supreme, who can say to him, "What are you doing?" And it's kind of interesting here because this is one of those things that seems, I don't want to say contradictory, but it seems different. And I think that's because whenever we think of rulers, especially from our earthly perspective, it's so easy to fall into this trap of assuming that they have, assuming things from a cynical point of view, which in today's world may be more accurate than it was during Solomon's day. But I would argue it's in a sense of whoever you swear yourself to, if you swear yourself to anybody, don't take that flippantly. Okay? That's not to say follow them mindlessly. And that's why I think he's saying don't stand up for a bad cause. But just be aware that you shouldn't mindlessly follow a herd. But if you do make a vow to do something for somebody, in the same way if you make a vow before God, hold to that. Take that seriously. Whoever obeys his command will come to no harm, and the wise heart will know the proper time and procedure. For there is a proper time and procedure for every matter, though a person may be weighed down by misery. Since no one knows the future, who can tell someone else what is to come? And no one has the power over the wind to contain it. Or the power over the human spirit to retain it, is some other ways that that's said. No one has the power over the time of their death, as no one is discharged in time of war, so wickedness will not release those who practice it. All this I saw, as I applied my mind to everything done under the sun. There is a time when a man lords it over others to his own hurt. Then too I saw the wickedness buried. Those who used to come and go from the holy place and receive praise in the city where they did this. This too is meaningless. Sorry, and there's a footnote here. Okay, so yeah, saying that those who go to that holy place sometimes and they are forgotten. So yeah, this is just, Solomon's really just going into his depths here on the terms of the pursuit of wickedness and the pursuit. Again, this is all saying the things you focus on from an earthly perspective. Don't get lost in that. And this is also, I forget exactly which book it's in the Bible, but it talks about not to get lost in the wars of man. And I think that also applies to what he's talking about here. All of this is things you'll get lost in from an earthly perspective. And if you let that become what your whole focus is, you will just lose yourself in that. It's one of the things, unfortunately, we see most often today in politics. It's so easy to almost let politics become your identity that you lose any sense of the self in them. It's an easy trap to fall into. And again, the devil has made it that way on purpose. He's very good at the game. But if you let that become what your identity is, you lose any sense of who you are in Christ. When a sentence for crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with... Oh my gosh, sorry. Sorry. When a sentence for crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. Although when a wicked person commits 100 crimes... although a wicked person who commits 100 crimes may live for a long time, I know that it will go better with those who fear God, who are reverent before him. Yet because the wicked do not fear God, it will not go well with them, and their days will not lengthen like a shadow. And again, in this term, we have to realize Solomon is not talking purely in terms of earth. He's talking about a grander scheme about, things past this earthly life. That's what you see. That's essentially what the book of Ecclesiastes all boils down to, is that earthly pursuit is meaningless. And then he says, I'm just going to go into this for 12, chapters and go into focus on it. But that's really what he's focusing on here. There is something else meaningless that occurs on earth. The righteous who get what the wicked deserve, and the wicked who get what the righteous deserve. This too, I say, is meaningless. So I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Then joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of the life God has given them under the sun. When I applied my mind to know wisdom and to observe the labor that was done on earth, people getting no sleep day or night, then I saw all that God has done. No one can comprehend what goes on under the sun. Despite all their efforts to search it out, no one can discover its meaning. Even if the wise claim they know, they cannot really comprehend it. That's something, again, that's what the whole book of Ecclesiastes boils down to. You can be wise, you can have understanding, but you're never going to know everything. You can be righteous, you can be close, but you're never going to truly be a man beyond sin. So I reflected on all this and concluded that the righteous and the wise are what they do in God's hand, and what they do are in God's hands. But no one knows whether love or hate awaits them. All share a common destiny: the righteous and the wicked, the good and the bad, the clean and the unclean, those who offer sacrifices and those who do not. Oh, interesting. The Hebrew here does not have and the bad. That's kind of interesting. And so it is with the good, as it is with the good, sorry. So with the sinful. As it is with those who take oaths, so with those who are afraid to take them. This is the evil in everything that happens under the sun. The same destiny overtakes all. The hearts of people, moreover, are full of evil, and there is madness in their hearts while they live, and afterwards they join the dead. Anyone who is amongst the living has hope. Even a live dog is better than a dead lion. What is then to be chosen? With all who live there is hope. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward, and even their name is forgotten. Their love, their hate, and their jealousy have long since vanished. Never again will they have a part in anything that happens under the sun. Now, obviously, this is not looking at things in terms of the eternal soul. This is talking purely in terms of the earthly focus. Again, that's a lot of what Solomon was hitting on here. So don't think that he means that it's pointless to be a righteous person as best you're capable of and gain eternal life with God. He's saying that it is pointless to try to live as a righteous person and accrue that standing for yourself on earth. Go, eat your food with gladness and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for God has already approved what you do. My gosh, sorry. Not sure why I'm yawning so much today. Always be clothed in white, and always anoint your head with oil. Enjoy life with your wife, whom you love, all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun, all your meaningless days. For this is your lot in life, and in your toilsome labor under the sun. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. For in the realm of the dead, where you are going, there is neither working, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom. I have seen something else under the sun. The race is not to the swift, or battle to the strong. Nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned. But time and chance happen to them all. Moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. As fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in by a snare, so the people are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. I kind of made that point earlier when I was talking about the folly of prepping. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's a mistake to try to, financially or wisdom-wise or prepare yourself for any sort of, for every eventuality. You're never going to be able to manage that. I also saw under the sun this example of wisdom that greatly impressed me. There was once a small city with only a few people in it, and a powerful king came against it, surrounded it, and built huge siege works against it. Now there lived in that city a man poor, but wise, and he saved the city by his wisdom. But nobody remembered that poor man. So I said, wisdom is better than strength. But the man's wisdom is despised, and his words are no longer heeded. The quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. And this goes, again, back into what this whole book is focusing on. Even if you're wise, it's a mistake to try to use that wisdom to gain standing on earth. The words may be remembered, but you as a person will be forgotten. Your life ultimately passes from this earth as it's meant to. The only thing that can provide any sort of longevity and meaning is your work with God. As dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Even as fools walk along the road, they lack sense, and show everyone how stupid they are. If a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offenses to rest. I find that to be true in my own life. If you rise to a level of anger, all it's going to be is a shouting match. No one is ever going to come to agree on anything. Calmness, and I don't want to say passiveness, but calmness can deflate a lot of anger. Or if you can't deflate the anger of the one that's directed at you, onlookers will see that. It is an easy thing to see somebody who's shouting and raving like a lunatic versus somebody that's being calm and responding, with sense and reason, versus that person who's screaming. Even if it doesn't make headway directly with the person you're talking to, which sometimes it won't, onlookers see it. So make sure you're the person that is responding in sense and in reason and in calmness. There's an evil I have seen under the sun, the sort of error that arises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high positions, while the rich occupy the low ones. I have seen slaves on horseback, while princes go on foot like slaves. Whoever digs a pit may fall into it. Whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Whoever quarries stones may be injured by them. Whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed. But skill will bring success. If a snake bites before it is charmed, the charmer receives no fee. Words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, but fools are consumed by their own lips. At the beginning their words are folly, and at the end they are wicked madness, and fools multiply words. No one knows what is coming, who can tell someone else what will happen after them. The toil of fools wearies them. They do not know the way to town. Woe to the land whose king was a servant, and whose princes feast in the morning. Or the king is a child. Blessed is the land whose king is of noble birth, and whose princes eat at a proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness. And what we're talking about here is basically, when we're talking about, kings that are of noble birth, it's not saying that because they are necessarily of, the royal bloodline as we think of it in today's terms, because it is a little bit goofy to think of it in that regard. But what he's saying is, a land will be blessed if its rulers are people that are placed there, in a wise position, are people that are meant to be there. Not people that have, this self-aggrandizing, starry-eyed view of their position. Essentially, humility, I guess, is a way to put what Solomon is talking about here. When it talks about feasting in the morning, these are people that, whatever resources they have, they carelessly use up early on, as opposed to thinking pragmatically and trying to prep to a degree. Again, not to go over the top of what's going to happen, but to essentially say, hey, we have a lot of things we have to accomplish. We're not going to give this all away in the first 5 seconds here. So that's kind of what Solomon is hitting on here when we talk about that kind of thing. The toil, through laziness, the rafters sag. Because of idle hands, a house leaks. A feast is made for laughter, wine makes life merry, and money is the answer for everything. Do not revile the king even in your thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom. Because a bird in the sky may carry your words, and a bird on the wing may report what you say. All right, Ecclesiastes 11. Ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. When a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the cloud will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind, or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, or how life or the spirit entering the body is formed. So you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Essentially, again, this goes into don't try to plan things according to your own understanding. Learn to be obedient and do the best you can with what God gives you. Sow your seeds in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. However many years anyone may live, let them enjoy all. But let them remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Everything to come is meaningless. You who are young, be happy while you are young, and let your heart give joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. So then banish anxiety from your heart, cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. So when he's saying that the youth is meaningless, he's not saying that, ironically, he's not saying it doesn't matter, but he's saying enjoy the fact that you're young, relish in it, but don't forget your creator and understand that all these things you see, all this excitement you have, all these things that you pursue aren't going to matter unless it's given to God. And so that's why he's saying cast off this trouble and these anxieties. If you remember God in your youth, you can walk the right path a lot easier. And that's something that's true even today. It's so much easier for somebody that is raised with an understanding of God to come to him in their adult life than it is for somebody that never has. Obviously, somebody that never has can, but it's much harder for them. They usually have to deal with a lot more correction. Remember your creator in the days of your youth. And again, like I was talking about earlier here, creator is a capital C. This is the creator of creators. Before the days of trouble come, and the years of approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light, and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain. When the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim. When the doors to the streets are closed, and the sound of grinding fades. When people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets. When the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire is no longer stirred. Then people go to their eternal homes, and mourners go about in the streets. Remember him before the silver cord is severed, and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring, and the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. Solomon talking about himself in this regard. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like goads. Their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails, given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. And this is still something that we say oftentimes. We say, don't add to scripture, which is true. But it's not saying that you can't add an understanding and wisdom, but be cautious of anything that is added, because it might have been added carelessly. And that's something that's absolutely true. We hit that a lot when we went through James and Peter about false teachers. And it's not necessarily always intentionally false teachers, even though it oftentimes is. There can be people who are just ignorant. So anytime somebody is adding understanding, try to take it in as much wisdom as you can and pray on it. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God, and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether good or evil. And that will bring to end our reading on Ecclesiastes. So yeah, Solomon is somebody just, again, you have to keep in mind, had everything. He looked at everything and said, none of this matters if you're focusing on earth. The dead, the wise and the fools are going to ultimately die. The good and the wicked are going to ultimately die. Don't seek to become pious. Don't seek any of this. Seek to do what God commands. That is the only thing that is ultimately going to mean anything. But that will do it for our stream this time. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you got something out of it. Hopefully all my rambling wasn't too much. And I will see you all next time.